Hello, Creative Gems. Welcome back to Creativity. And if you're new here, I'm Sandy. I'm back today with another cardboard box craft. We're going to transform this empty cardboard box into a beautiful glam storage box with a lid that you can open and close. To start, we're going to take this wooden Dollar Tree sign and use it to stabilize the bottom of the box. And I really think I got lucky because this sign is literally the same size as the bottom of the box. However, it is a bit longer than we need, so we'll need to cut it down to size. But don't worry, we will not need any special tools to cut this down to size. Now, the first thing I've done is to snip off the jute rope from the sign since we won't be needing it. Next, I've placed the wooden sign flat onto my table surface, and then I've lined up the box on top of the sign so I can figure out where I need to cut the sign. And by the way, I'm calling it a wooden sign, but I think it's actually made of a thin MDF, which means I'll be able to cut it out easily without a saw. In fact, you can see here I've got my box cutter, and to make sure that I get a straight cut, I would recommend placing a ruler where the pencil line is drawn before you start scoring the wooden sign with your box cutter. And from there, I'm just going to score the wooden sign several times until I have a deep enough cut. You may need to check the sign every once in a while to see how deep the score is. And once it's deep enough, about halfway through the sign, you should be able to gently bend the sign until it snaps into two pieces. And if not, you can also use a heavy-duty pair of scissors to help cut through it. This only took me a couple of minutes to get the sign cut out to size, but if you're a little squeamish using the box cutter like I used to be, take your time and go slow so you don't cut yourself. Okay, so now that the sign is cut to size, I'm going to go ahead and tear away the paper design on the front of the sign. This step is optional, but since it already started coming apart, I'm just going to remove the entire thing. If you decide not to remove the paper design, don't worry, because by the time we're done with this sign, no one will actually be able to see the design on it anyways, since we're going to be covering it up anyways. And while we work on this, I would like to take a moment to thank you for tuning in to today's craft project. If you enjoy glam home decor and DIY crafts on a budget, please let me know by hitting that subscribe button. And if you like what you see today, please give me a thumbs up as well so the YouTube gods will continue to recommend my channel to other viewers like you. Okay, so once the paper design is removed, I'm going to use my scissors to remove the staples from the sign. I'm using the tip of my scissors to try and lift the staples up. If you don't have any scissors with pointy edges like mine, you can also use an actual staple remover or even some pliers. Okay, so this sign is pretty much cleaned up now. Let's place it into the box just to make sure it fits properly. I want to make sure I cut the size properly. Well, it looks like it fits perfectly, so that's good. Now let's go ahead and turn this box upside down, because what I'm going to do next is cut off the small flaps from the left and right side using my box cutter. But don't throw these flaps away because we're going to be using them for something else later. Keep them aside and I'll show you in a bit what we're going to do with them. Once the two small flaps are cut off, we're going to go ahead and cut off one of the larger flaps. Make sure you only cut one off though, because we will need the other one to stay intact. I'll explain why as we work on this box. So now I've turned my box right side up, and I've taken a second wooden sign from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to cut it to size to convert it into a properly sized lid for our box. And for the benefit for those who may have skipped over the first cut I did earlier on the first sign, I'm going to show you all again how I cut this wooden sign using my box cutter. What's important is to use a ruler or something with a straight flat edge as a guide so you can ensure that you cut the sign with a straight line. line. And like I mentioned earlier, take your time if you're not used to using a box cutter, although it's really very similar to using a knife for those who cook. All I'm doing is using the blade to score the wooden sign several times. And I'll keep repeating this until the cut is deep enough so I can use my hands to snap the sign into two pieces. You may need to stop and check a few times to see how deep the cut is, and when it's about halfway deep, you should be able to use your two hands to gently bend the sign until it snaps into two pieces. Then you can remove the paper design that's glued to the front of the sign. And if you're still with me, comment down below with the word cardboard box and let me know what kinds of crafts you have made with leftover cardboard boxes. Okay, so when we snapped off the piece from the wooden sign, it looks like it was not a clean snap off. As you can see, the side where I didn't apply the box cutter is quite jagged. So I'll go ahead and clean that up with the blade from the box cutter just so we have a straight edge on both sides of the wooden sign. And then just as I did before, I'm going to remove the staples so we are left with a perfectly flat surface. Although if you have any trouble removing the staples, I really don't think it's a big deal and it won't noticeably affect the look of the storage box if you keep the staples on. But if you're able to remove them, go ahead and remove them just so you have a clean flat surface to work with. Alright, so once the staples are removed, we are ready to construct our lid. Remember a few moments earlier, we cut one of the larger flaps off and now we're left with only one that is still intact. What I'm going to do is adhere this flap onto the wooden sign we just cut to size. To secure the two together, I'm actually going to use some carpenter glue. And I know you guys have never seen me use this type of glue on my channel, but I recently used this carpenter glue for a home reno project and it worked out so well I thought I would use it here as well. So this glue is meant to glue cardboard and wood materials. It is a semi-thick type of glue, similar consistency and texture to the tacky glue that you have seen me use before. But there are some notable differences. This carpenter glue is ever so slightly thicker than tacky glue and it cures and bonds literally within 15 or 20 minutes, which means you'll have time to make adjustments and reposition things before the glue starts to really bond. However, the downside to this glue is that it does not dry transparent or clear like white glue, so I would not use this when I'm working with loose flat back gems or pearls or ribbons. But other than that, this glue is amazing. And once it's fully cured, it's solid and it's secure. And you can see here, I'm going to use some clips to temporarily hold together the cardboard to the wooden sign while the glue cures. I'll also wipe away any excess glue seeping out. Okay, so I left this for 20 minutes and I've already removed the clips. Let's double check to see how well the two pieces are holding together. Wow, this is really solid. These two pieces are not going to separate at all. And so now you can know why we left this flap intact. It will act as an anchor to allow us to open and close the lid for our box. But for now, we're going to continue making over this box, so I'm going to use some painter's tape to hold the lid down so it doesn't keep opening on us while we work on the rest of the box. So now the real fun starts because we're going to embellish this box, bling it out, and transform it into a really elegant storage box. To start, I'm going to use the silver chrome card trim and apply it all around the bottom edge of the box. It will act as a border trim which will really elevate the look of this box. This trim is very flexible and is actually self-adhesive, but to add a bit more adhesion, I'm going to apply some hot glue to the back of the trim before adhering it to the box. This is really just to make sure that the trim doesn't try to come apart when we go around the corners of the box. And notice how I'm placing the end of the trim not right at the corner edge of the box, but about an inch along the adjacent side of the box. That way we can cleanly wrap the trim around the corner. This is really more for aesthetics because I prefer not to see a cut seam right at the corner. Now I'll go ahead and add tiny dollops of glue as I adhere the rest of the trim around the box. And by the way, if you're new to my channel, one question I always get is, where do I find all those beautiful embellishments I use from my crafts? So I just want to let you know that I always include links in every video description. So you'll find this beautiful silver chrome card trim along with many other gorgeous embellishments by clicking the links in the description box. I even have a curated list of my most favorite embellishments that you can check out. And while we work on this card trim, comment down below with the words cardboard box and let me know what types of crafts you would like to see on my channel next. I love to see all your comments and all your feedback, so if there's something that you haven't seen yet on my channel, please let me know. And as long as it's something I can bling out, I'll give it a try. Okay, so we've got the card trim installed and now we're going to start working on the sides of the box. We're going to start with these mirrors. If you have seen my other home decor crafts on my channel, you'll know that I love to use mirrors as embellishments. These mirrors are not beveled, but they do come in different sizes. These ones measure 4 by 4, so they're slightly smaller than the height of the box. In total, we'll be able to fit 4 of these mirrors on the 2 larger sides of this box. And by the way, these mirrors also come smaller or larger, and if you buy them using my link in the description box, you'll actually be able to get a whole bunch of them for less than 50 cents per mirror. Or you can find similar ones at the Dollar Tree, but you're going to have to pay a bit more per mirror. To adhere the mirrors to the box, I'm using the carpenter glue again. If you don't have this glue though, you could also use tacky glue from the dollar store. Just make sure you allow enough time for the glue to fully cure. And in case you're wondering why I'm not using hot glue, it's because hot glue tends to dry in hard clumps once it's cooled down. And I want to make sure these mirrors lie perfectly flat right up against the cardboard box. Otherwise, we'll be left with ugly gaps between the mirror and the box, and that's something we just don't want. Okay, so I've waited the requisite amount of time for the glue to fully cure, so let's test it out and make sure they're secured. All right, they're looking good. Those mirrors are stuck onto the box and they're not going anywhere. Let's go ahead and flip this box over and do the same thing on the other side of the box. And one thing you may or may not have noticed is that I'm placing the mirrors flush right up against the card trim. It's a design choice I made, but you could design your box differently if you prefer. So the mirrors are all secured to both of the larger sides of the box. The carpenter glue really did a great job. Now I'm going to go back in and cover the seams between each of the mirrors. In fact, we're going to use the same silver chrome card trim we used earlier. Using the same trim will give the box a more consistent and congruent design. And using this trim is so easy because it's flexible and you can cut it to size. But the real reason why I like this trim is because it has a mirror reflective finish, which means it can really elevate the look of the home decor craft I'm making. Once the first side is done, we can flip the box over and do the exact same thing on the other side. I'll do that offline and then come back to show you what it looks like, and then we'll continue embellishing the rest of the box. Okay, so the second side is done now, and as you can see, we can do the two smaller sides of the box now. We'll only be able to fit one of the 4x4 mirrors, and I'll make sure that each mirror is placed flush to the chrome trim in the middle. Once that's done, we'll flip the box over and do the same thing on the other side. So now that we have four sides of the box embellished with the mirrors, we're going to go back in and embellish the areas where we have exposed cardboard. I'm starting by painting all around the mirrors using some white paint. And if you're still with me, drop me a note with the words cardboard box and let me know where you're tuning in from. If you're from the US, I would love to know which state you're in. Eventually, it would be nice to have someone from each and every state tuning into my channel. And if you're tuning in from outside of America, I would love to know which country you're watching from. It would be interesting to see how close or how far you all are from. I know some of you have tuned in from South America, from Trinidad, from the UK, Australia, India, and even as far away as Africa. And wherever you are from, I hope you're able to craft along with me or at least enjoy watching my craft tutorials. So now with the exposed areas of the cardboard box painted white, it makes a good backdrop for our next step. We're going to apply some Mod Podge all over the painted areas. Just make sure you apply only once the paint has dried, which really shouldn't take long if you're using acrylic paint. And don't worry about the type of Mod Podge. Although Mod Podge comes in a variety of finishes, you can actually use any type, whether glossy, matte, or even glitter. The Mod Podge is going to act as a tacky base for us to sprinkle some of this clear glass filler. I'm going to use my fingers to sprinkle the glass filler just so I can control the amount that comes out of the jar. And as I sprinkle the vase filler, I'll go back in and apply more Mod Podge. I want to make sure that the vase filler actually sticks to the cardboard box without any of it falling off. Now, ideally, I would have preferred to use crushed glass, but believe it or not, I just haven't been able to find any crushed glass anywhere that I'm located. I know occasionally Michael's has it, but they always seem to sell out. But not only that, their jars are so small, you get so little for what they charge. So I'm hoping this is going to be a good alternative embellishment option. But if you do have a favorite place you go to get crushed glass, do me a favor and drop me a comment down below and let me know. Well, so as it turns out, I really did not like the look of the vase filler on the box. So I ended up wiping it all off and removing it all from the box before the Mod Podge had the chance to dry. So that now means that we're going to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to reapply a new coat of Mod Podge since I ended up wiping away the first layer. And you guys already know I don't have any crushed glass. So the next best option, I think, is to cover the box with some silver glitter. I like using the extra fine version so you don't get clumps, which you may get with the larger pieces of silver glitter. But the downside with using glitter, especially the extra fine stuff, is it can get pretty messy. But that's why I have placed a piece of craft paper underneath the box so I can catch the excess onto the craft paper and then put it back into the glitter jar. That way there is absolutely no wastage. Here you'll see me sprinkle the silver glitter onto the box pretty liberally, and then I'll turn the box over and tap it lightly on the side just to shake off any excess. And then I'll apply a second coat of Mod Podge and glitter before sealing everything in place with a final coat of Mod Podge. Okay, so at this point, I think I'm all glittered out. Everything has dried, so we're ready to go back in and continue with the rest of the embellishments. I'll go ahead and apply some more silver chrome card trim along the edges of the mirror. That way, we don't have any of those harsh mirror edges exposed. So the next thing we're going to do is address the rim of the cardboard box where we cut the flaps off. This rim is looking pretty ugly, so I'm going to go in with a metallic silver paint marker to see if we can make it look a little nicer. If not, I'll just have to come up with another plan. And by the way, if you haven't figured it out by now, when I first started this craft, I actually did not have a full detailed blueprint of what I was going to make. I did have a general idea that I wanted to make some sort of pretty storage box with the cardboard box, but I didn't really have a detailed design in mind. The only thing I had planned out was the structure of the box and how to get a homemade lid made so I could flip the lid open and shut. But besides that, the rest of the design is pretty much being done on the fly, which is why you're seeing me make some mistakes and pivot to alternative design options. But I think that's part of the fun of crafting and being creative. In fact, let me know down in the comments if you're a planner or if you like to fly by the seat of your pants, or if you're somewhere in between like me where you have a general idea of what you want to craft, but the detailed design can change along the way. Anyhow, with the rim painted, let's figure out how we're going to make the inside of the box pretty. I have this gold glitter fabric that I found at the Dollarama that I think would be perfect. The fabric is thicker than, say, felt, and in fact, it's almost leather-like. It's also flexible and can be easily cut to size. This fabric also comes in a variety of colors, including silver glitter. And for those of you who don't have access to a Dollarama, I did find similar options online as well. I'll be sure to leave a link in the video description in case you want to stock up on some for your own crafts. So here I'm going to cut strips of the glitter fabric to fit the inside of the lid. And in case you're wondering why I'm using gold instead of silver, there are two reasons. One, I actually ran out of the silver glitter fabric because I've used it so many times for my other craft projects, and then I forgot to buy more. And two, I figured the silver glitter on the exterior of the box would be an excellent contrast to the gold glitter when you open the box to the inside. Or at least I hope so. And truthfully, if you haven't noticed lately, I've been experimenting with combining gold and silver together in some of my more recent home decor crafts, and I'm actually liking the two together. I feel like the gold almost gives a nice pop of color to my usual silver pieces. Anyhow, Let's go ahead and secure the glitter fabric to the inside of the cardboard box. To do that, you can use some tacky glue, but for the sake of time, I'm actually going to opt for hot glue because it will cool and dry almost instantly. But you'll notice that I'm being very careful about how I apply the hot glue. I'm placing the tip of the hot glue gun right against the cardboard box on a slant and applying it in very tiny bits at a time, ensuring that the glue is dispensed as flat as possible onto the cardboard box. And then I'm immediately pressing down onto the cardboard box and glitter fabric to adhere the two together so that it's as flat as possible. I'm also using my hand to smooth out the fabric right away to prevent any hard clumps of glue forming. Like I mentioned earlier, I hate that hot glue dries in clumps, so I really want to make sure I smooth out the fabric right away to avoid those clumps. I guess it's a balance between patience and aesthetics when deciding between tacky glue and hot glue. Tacky glue takes longer to cure but will always give a smooth finish, no clumps, whereas hot glue will cool and dry immediately. But depending on what materials you are adhering together, you may be left with unsightly clumps and gaps. In fact, let me know down in the comments what glue you prefer to use for your crafts. Honestly, for me, it really depends on what materials I'm working with. If I'm working with soft materials and fabric, I like to use hot glue. But if I'm working with gems, it's likely going to be tacky glue because it dries clear, and really the drying time is mostly tolerable at about 15 or 20 minutes for things to start bonding. And of course, if I'm working with metal, wood, and cardboard, wood glue or a carpenter glue works very well in addition to carefully dispensed hot glue. And then finally, with anything breakable like bonding glass to glass or mirror to glass, I'm usually going to stick with E6000 or Fixall since those provide a much more secure and longer lasting hold. So now with the lid covered and one side of the inside of the box covered, I'm going to go back in and take care of this gap. By the way, this gap was intentional because when we open and close the lid, we don't want the gold glitter fabric to get in the way of opening and closing the lid. So that's why I left a gap here, but of course the gap is ugly because we have the exposed cardboard. So I'll go in with my metallic gold paint marker to make it look a bit nicer. So with that done, I'll work on covering the remaining sides inside of the box with the gold glitter fabric, and then I'll come back later. So with the inside of the box mostly covered, I did end up leaving the bottom of the box uncovered. That's because we're going to be inserting the wooden sign that we cut to size earlier. But before we do that, we're going to wrap the wooden sign with a piece of the same gold glitter fabric as well. Here I've already cut a piece of the fabric slightly larger than the wooden sign. I've got about an inch extra from each side so I can fold the sides over. To adhere the fabric to the wooden sign, I'm using hot glue, and I'll apply it carefully to avoid those hard clumps when the hot glue cools and dries. I'll start with the longest sides, first using my hand to press down on the fabric to quickly flatten out the glue drying underneath. For the corners, I'm going to cut the side flaps on a diagonal before folding them down so we can get a perfect corner. Okay, now for the moment of truth. Our board is now ready to be placed inside the box. Hopefully it will still fit because the fabric is kind of thick. Well, it's a snug fit, but it went in and it sits nicely inside. And by the way, remember those flaps we cut out earlier? We can cover them with the same glitter fabric and then place them inside the box and use them to create partitions in case you want to organize your things. How cool is that? So next we're going to work on embellishing the top of the lid. Just as we did for the sides of the box, we're going to secure 4 of these 4x4 mirrors. You can see I already went ahead and marked off the lid so I know exactly where the mirrors will be placed so that they are perfectly centered. Now with the mirrors adhered to the lid, we'll want to add the silver comb card trim all around them just like we did earlier with the 2 larger sides of the box. This will give the box a more cohesive and consistent design look. Okay, so, well, as it turns out, I only had enough trim to cover the seams between the 4 mirrors, but not enough to add it as a border around the perimeter of all the mirrors. So we're going to have to improvise with the silver rhinestone trim. If you've seen any of my other crafts, you'll likely recognize this trim as it's actually one of my most favorite embellishments. The trim is flexible and can be cut to size, and it's also self-adhesive. In fact, once you peel off the wax backing, it's extremely sticky, so no extra glue will be necessary. My only suggestion is to measure out how much you need and cut the piece out that you need before removing the wax backing, because once you remove the wax backing, it becomes much more difficult to cut the trim since the back is so sticky. So I'm going to continue embellishing this lid offline and then I'll come back to show you what it looks like. Okay, so I'm back now and take a look at this beauty. And the lid opens up to a gold interior. But take a look at that rim. I'm personally not happy with the way it looks even after I painted it with the metallic silver paint marker. So to fix that, I'm going to cover the rim with the same silver rhinestone trim as well. I'm also going to clean up those corner seams inside the box. I'll use a string of these silver beads, which will add some color contrast to the gold fabric. And guys, I know some of you love these silver beads as embellishments, but I also know a few of you don't like them. So if you're one of those people, I apologize for using them again, but I would also welcome any other embellishment ideas you may have. In fact, I would love it for you to drop me a note in the comments section and let me know what else I could use to cover those corner seams. I'm open to your suggestions, and as always, I'm very welcoming of any constructive feedback you may have. So here's what the inside of the box looks like now. All the exposed cardboard is covered up with the gold glitter fabric, and the corner seams are camouflaged with the silver beads. And as I mentioned earlier, I covered the flaps because we cut them out and we're now using them as partitions inside the box. We have the option to organize our items now with these partitions. Alright, so we're almost to the home stretch. Let's flip this box over. Our last step is to elevate this storage box with some fancy legs. I have this set of 4 glass tea light holders from the Dollar Tree that I think would be perfect as legs for our storage box. Since these tea light holders are clear and rather plain, what I'm also going to do is add a strip of the self-adhesive silver rhinestone trim, the same ones we use to adorn the lid of the box. Since I'm going to secure the legs to the bottom of the cardboard box upside down, I'm going to position the trim so that they're visible when you look at the legs while the box is sitting on the table surface. This step is actually optional, but I do prefer to give this box some fancy legs, not only to make it look even prettier and more glam and more regal, but also because raising the box up gives me the option to slide stuff underneath the box as well. It would give me extra storage and another way to keep things hidden yet easily accessible. To adhere each of the legs to the box, I'm going in with some Fix-All. I chose Fix-All because it's like a super glue and will provide a very secure, long-lasting hold compared to any other type of glue. But since Fix-All takes hours to fully cure, I'm also going to go back in with a tiny little bit of hot glue as well. Then I'll position each leg on each of the 4 corners of the box. I'm going to place each leg as close to the outer corners as possible so the legs are actually visible when sitting on the table. So here's the final look for our storage box. It's glittery, it's blingy, and look at those matching legs. The lid opens into a beautiful gold glitter interior, and there's tons of room for storing just about anything. But guys, I need your help. What do you think I should use this box for? Leave me a comment and let me know your suggestions. And if you enjoyed today's craft tutorial, please like and subscribe to my channel and share with other creative gems. Also, remember to hit the notification bell so you can be notified every time I have another DIY glam project on my channel.